David, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here.
Likewise. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for
Awesome.
inviting me.
You're welcome. Well, I want to give you a proper introduction. So guys, David is the CEO of Citizen Remote. It's a website and an app, and it's a home for digital nomads and remote workers. So basically, it's like an all-in-one app for moving to a new country, visa help, accommodation, insurance, taxes, community. It's literally everything. David went to the University of Illinois. Holler. I actually lived in Naperville once.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay.
yeah, so I know Illinois a little bit. And then he also went to the New
Land
York,
of Lincoln.
yeah, he also went to New York Law School. So he's actually an international licensed attorney. He's an international lawyer as well as a licensed attorney in the state of New York. He also speaks Chinese, English, and Italian, which I'm super jealous about that. And
This is a generous introduction.
yeah, and he's also the founder of Relocate.world, which I'm so excited to jump
Yeah.
in. So kind of like tell us, I mean, what are you primarily, first of all, tell us where you're calling from.
Yeah, sure. It was a tough decision. I was like, I sit inside. I'm in our friend's country home outside of Venice, or
Okay.
sit outside where the sun is setting, and it's about spritz time here in Italy. For those who have been to Italy, um,
Anybody
so
been
yeah,
to
I'm in
Italy?
Italy at the moment. Yeah, is
Anybody,
anybody in Italy or
yeah,
been or
anybody
want
in
to go?
Italy, been to Italy, put yes in the chat.
Yeah,
Let us know
jump
where you're
in.
on, or if that's a place you want to move to.
There we go.
Dave,
We got some responses. Yeah, Italy's on the list. Okay, visit often. All
nice.
right, sweet.
Allison, Amy, Petra,
Yeah,
Antonia, Ben. Are those the places you
nice,
guys want
nice.
to move
Lots
to?
of love. Yeah,
Let us know if that's like on your guys' radar and what's your timeline, because we can definitely dive into that a little bit. So
bello.
tell us where you're from, New York, right?
Originally from New York, correct?
When
Yeah,
did you move to
born and
Italy?
raised, and then moved here 4 years ago with my two kids and my spouse. So yeah, we've been here ever since. We've stayed here, and it's kind of a one way, right, at this
Awesome. I love
moment.
that.
Yeah,
How did
yeah.
you like, so tell us about like your story in terms of, I mean, it looks like you were first, a lawyer in New York State, and then what happened? Like what shifted for you to make you do this work?
Yeah. So yeah, the journey kind of, I hung up a shingle after law school, and even in law school, was always kind of coloring outside the lines, right? I went to China. I did about a year there. Got an LLM in Beijing, studying international comparative law and just digging into a new culture. And that always continues. I mean, I would love to obviously talk about my backpacking days before there was, even a cell phone, but we'll plow forward in time.
Oh,
And yeah, I mean, I hung up a shingle, did a bunch of legal work, and knew I wanted to do something in international law. But how do you define that in practice? How do you define that in your career? It's a totally different thing.
mhm.
And I fell into immigration and started representing individuals, a variety of cases, mostly for the United States. And so I've been dealing with people for the past 10 years or so, always with mobility matters. And a lot for the US, but then kind of the world opened up, and I was forging new partnerships in the private practice, various destinations abroad,
Okay.
and meeting with lawyers and meeting with clients, and again, always at this intersection of the movement of people, and how to actually enable that. It's a true passion of mine, and yeah, 2.5 years ago, I was foolish enough to leave the private practice and get into the tech space. And I'm still here, still grinding, figuring it all out. But as everyone probably here knows, as well as yourself, a lot has changed in the last 2.5 years, specifically in this space for mobility. So it's an exciting time to be, and I'm fortunate to have a career path, I guess, in this space as well.
Wow. I think a lot of people resonate with what you're saying, because we all kind of have to leave this like idea, or this label that we've put on ourselves. Like, before I was a D1 volleyball player and I resonated with that, and you always have to leave to the next thing.
I wanted to point out a couple of things. As much as I love the CEO title, I'm a co-founder of Citizen Remote. We have Peter Gratale, Tim Martin as well, who are the two other co-founders at Citizen Remote. So definitely, just nomenclature, but yeah, there's definitely a good team that's involved with Citizen Remote, and where I'm a co-founder of, and very fortunate to be working with such a good core team. Again, in this space, which I think we were talking about, that's super exciting, right? I mean, again, I have an immigration law background, specifically, U.S. immigration law that I was practicing for around 10 years, and then left the private practice, wanted to, I guess you can say, quote unquote, disrupt the global migration space, because dealing with people and people's stories, there's real meaning to that, especially when people are picking up, moving somewhere, whether it's alone or with a family. It's somebody's future, somebody's life. And I realized that there was a lot in the migration industry that is creating, unnecessary challenges and burdens. So, those missions to kind of ease the burdens of, you can say, relocation and migration are still with me, still very much with me at the core. And I'm happy to. I know there's probably a lot of people that have questions out there. I also saw with your conversation with Andrew, you guys were kind of getting into, some of the granular details about, the migration space and what's possible. Obviously happy to field as many questions, during this conversation as well, specifically with regards to, remote work visa categories, which is, obviously exploded throughout the world. So a lot of interesting stories to share with you, Shona. But thanks again for having me. And, obviously thanks to everyone for jumping back on in here. And the numbers are still coming back up. So, rise above.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, I've upped the security. That's why it took me 10 minutes to send the new Zoom link. I've made it so that nobody can show their video. I've just figured out how to do that right now, and nobody can unmute themselves. So if you do want to ask a question, just make sure you raise your hand. And thank you guys so much for your understanding. I am so sorry that happened. And yeah, let's just continue. So David,
keep shining. Yeah.
Tell us, what is Citizen Remote, and how are you guys helping people, and what benefits would it be for people to have this?
Yeah, sure. So Citizen Remote launched at an interesting time, and Peter Grittali, again, the founder of Citizen Remote, set it up initially as just an information and a source for finding out about how to get to another place through remote work visas. What are remote work visas? Did we lose? Are you still there, Shona? Okay.
Yeah, I just put you as spotlight. Yeah.
You moved somewhere. And so, it was launched just as this informational, educational source. And since then, Peter approached me where he's like, we're getting all this interest in these visas, and I'm not sure how to answer them. I'm obviously not a lawyer. I obviously am not, a global migration lawyer at that time where I can speak intelligently about remote work destinations, just, at mass. So he started to think, and I started to think with him about how to approach, this need. And it started with the migration patterns and what people were looking to do and where people were looking to go. Fast forward, 2 years later, Peter and the team has just basically listened to this community. And the growing community. And now there's actually a place where you can come into a community, have a name, have a profile, have a face, connect with others. This didn't exist 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So I guess, Sean, if you're still there, because I don't know where you are on the screen, but I hope you're still there. Oh, there you are. Okay, good. Yeah, to answer your question, Citizen Remote at the end of the day is a tech-enabled, it's a community, right? I mean, it's a community, right? But it's based off of tech, and it's got a social element to it where you can connect with other remote workers, digital nomads, all in one space. And building out features and products is secondary to listening to that community. So that's what I love. I mean, it's basically like, okay, there's this need. Now let's build a product around this need. So we've launched some amazing features there. You can obviously download the mobile app and get into the mobile app and connect and engage with the community. You can request, living in a particular destination and be guided towards a new place to live in that country. But I think it kind of starts in where where I sit at the company now every single day is speaking again with people who are looking to migrate and move and figure out what that next destination might be, or if you know the destination, how to get there and navigate the remote work visas. And yeah, we built out features that will help enable you to get there, from finding insurance to finding a place to live to connecting with other remote workers. And so yeah, there's a whole engineering roadmap to cater to this need and this movement that's happening.
Awesome. I love that. So can you tell us more about like when people log into the app, is it free or can they,
There,
how does it work? Like
yeah,
tell us kind of what the
yeah,
flow is and like what the kind of things are that you're providing on there. Like I know you can
yeah.
find out about digital nomad
Sure.
visas and you can do like a quiz. It's really cool. I did it. But tell us kind of like what happens when you get on there.
Yeah, so I mean, it is free to get in there to join the community. We also just launched a web app, so you can actually get into not just a mobile app, but you can go into a web app, create a profile, and there's various features that we're launching and continuing to launch, within the web app and mobile app ecosystem. So at the moment, it's fairly beta, right? You can one of the coolest features that I love is like you can just open up the connect option in your profile and see who's around you, based on like geo positioning, and connect with remoters who are in that space or in that geographic region. In terms of support services, the one that we have built out the most is kind of in the migration space, right? So you mentioned the visa quiz, which is awesome, and we're continuing to iterate on that. It's basically taking you through a journey to say, where do you want to go? If you don't know where you want to go, that's also fine. We obviously love that type of demographic, that type of profile. That's at the heart of many ways who we are. So it helps you guide, it guides you towards where you're eligible, right? To even go if you want to go somewhere, and gives you lists of options, it gives you information. And then if you want to take the next steps, you can kind of jump into what we call like the visa wizard, where we're developing, pretty unique technology that will enable you, hopefully, not too far in the future, to even do this type of application yourself. Because I'm sure, Shauna, as you know, and probably many people out there know, this visa category, remote work visa category, I think in many ways is meant to be seamless. You know, it's not like a golden visa. It's not like an investor visa. It's not like you even need an employer to sponsor you. So in many ways, you can go to Malaysia and go online. You can go to Belize and go online and file these applications yourself. So we're basically building a knowledge base to enable applicants to do it themselves. But right now, it's still very much the wild, wild west. So we built out a very easy user journey, and you can say portal, where you can organize documents for visa filing, get on-demand customer support. We have, immigration lawyers, including myself, on the ground who support individuals through the actual filing. And yeah, Shona, even in that space, you can easily connect, get insurance. You can have certified translations with a click of a button. You can get an eSIM. So it's like just things that you would need to get there, and we're enabling that.
What would you say is like the hardest part about somebody moving abroad? And you're an immigration lawyer. So like if you guys have immigration questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But like what's the most tricky part, would you say, from your research experience?
Aside from getting started?
Right. It's like the mindset behind it, right?
Yeah. I mean, because that's kind of what it is, right? You look at information, you think about what you want to do next, and then you just kind of, in some cases, can go down a rabbit hole, right? Because you're like a bit overwhelmed. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of very good information, but a lot of conflicting sources. Who do you speak to? So I think when you're just really getting started, it's kind of the moments where you're like, whoa, this is a little overwhelming. Do I really want to do this? But if you do get past that point, I think you'll find that everything else tends to fall into place.
Nice. Okay, what about like the immigration piece, like the visa part? A lot of people that are here like have their own business. They want to go remote. I mean, what's your recommendation for like the path that people should do in terms of visa?
Um,
If you
well,
have
I
any.
mean, get started, plan a bit in advance. Like you have to start at least, 3 months in advance because typically, some documents are just difficult to get depending on where you're coming from, right? Like such as a criminal background check that's apostilled, right? I mean, for many countries that takes like 6 to 8 weeks plus to even get that. If you know what an apostille is, it's covered through the Hague Convention and most destinations are requiring this, and that just takes time. And then if you don't time it right, that ages out. There's a lot of moving parts, and I know you and Andrew are also talking about employers, right? And so it's obviously different if you're working for an employer as a full-time, W-2 employee versus
Yeah.
if you're freelance. I like having you in the room, Sean.
Oh,
I feel more comfortable with you here next to me.
awesome. You're like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
am I by
Yeah,
myself?
just so you know, yeah, it's bad. It's nicer this way. And if anyone else wants to come into the room, and has questions, of course.
Yeah, raise your
Um,
hands because we're
yeah,
giving David some extra time. But if you guys have questions, raise your Zoom hand, but I'll let you finish your thought.
yeah. So it's really right now also scheduling with consulates, right? So if you're abroad and scheduling with consulates, that's not always easy, especially if you have to go through, VFS, which we're trying to put out of business someday, right? And that's like a scheduling platform that has a monopoly on the industry. So depending on where you are in the world, figuring out who has jurisdiction over your visa processing, it's not an easy thing to figure out. And even when you do figure it out, there's significant time that might be, unexpectedly involved to just even get an appointment. Like Portugal, I just saw somebody send a message about Portugal, and if you're in the United States or elsewhere abroad, navigating consular processing is not easy. And Shauna, because this is so new,
Mhm.
remote work visas are so new. It's the wild, wild west. Like it really is. Like we have clients all over the world or representing clients all over the world going to different jurisdictions. For example, Greece, we had a client who was in Azerbaijan, and I'm dealing with the consulate there. We're dealing with the consulate there, and they're
Nice.
like, we never heard of this. We never heard of this visa, So they have to go back to the internal ministry in Greece to get directions, and because the operational guidance for many of these consulates are not even there yet, because the countries are trying to attract foreign workers and remote workers, but they're getting ahead of themselves because they don't even have the procedural capacity to adjudicate some of these cases and the applicants. So it's being a migration lawyer, there's no doubt like a lot of support that's still needed at this stage. I hope in like 2 years from now and 3 years from now, we're able to say, hey, we don't need this clunky system via VFS. We don't even need to go to a consulate, right? We can just do everything streamlined online, and we're in the country. We're literally transcending borders, which is the way the world should be.
Nice. Love it. We have a couple questions. So Joseph, I'm going to ask you to unmute. You can also put your question in the chat, Joseph.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you
Joseph.
hear me?
Yeah.
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 Can you tell me what the current situation on vaccinations are? The COVID vaccinations. Are there still a lot of countries that aren't allowing people in that aren't vaccinated?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest, I've only seen it come up a couple times in the fine print.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, especially with most of the high priority destination countries throughout the EU. I think the ones that I've seen require this were like out in Asia, like Japan, for example, I think has that requirement, if I'm not mistaken. But
Okay.
yeah, to be honest, Joseph, I haven't seen that as like the main requirement.
Okay, that's great.
Or a requirement. Yeah.
Thanks for your question, Joseph.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And then if you could, I'm gonna put you back on mute. Cool. Ben Sheffy, do you have a question? I'm gonna ask you to unmute. And then let's wrap it up if we can in the next minute or so. David, thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited to like see your guys' journey with Citizen Remote and how awesome it is. It's an awesome resource. Like I've already found a lot of I know you guys are doing like blog posts and different things about just helpful resources, and it's really awesome. Ben, did you want to unmute?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Hi, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Okay, so I have a very specific question. So I don't think it's going to apply to many people here, but like I'm a dual national, and I was born in a country that there are quite a few countries don't actually recognize. Like I'm from Israel, but
Okay.
I also have a British passport, for example, and like countries like Iran, Iraq, or places like that, they don't recognize Israel. But because I have a British passport, am I allowed to go there to visit?
Go where?
Like places
I
that
missed.
don't recognize Israel but do the UK.
To be honest, I'm not sure. Right. I know that Israeli passports, as well as other nationals, right. Unfortunately, because of geopolitical reasons, it's difficult to migrate. Right. So you're not alone. And Ben, I'm happy to chat with you. I think Shauna sent a link. And what I do best, if I don't have the answers, I know a lot of immigration lawyers that do. And that's also, I think one of my skill sets in the space is the ability to make introductions to, vetted practitioners throughout the world who you can trust. So happy to chat with you, Ben, offline about that. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to give you a direct answer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and Manishma Ben, I have family that lives
Manishma.
in
Yeah.
Israel. Shabbat Shalom. Well, it's still Shabbat here, probably not
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
it is.
Yeah, it's
It is.
Shabbat.
Yeah, I forgot.
So nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, well, David, thank you so much. It's so cool that you're
Likewise.
calling in from Italy, and we have
Yeah.
dropped, all the info for Citizen Remote, and you can book the
Sure.
free call
Thank
with
you.
David. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a super busy guy. You have 2 startups, right?
All good.
The
All
other one we
good.
can chat about. And I'd like to bring up Angel. So let's Angel, let me see. I need you to put your video on for me to bring you up
I
here.
have to say, Shauna, I thought we were going to be telling you an untold secret, so I have that prepared for next time.
Oh, tell your untold secret. Yes.
No, that's for next time. That's for next time now.
Are you
That's
sure?
okay.
You don't want to tell.
Yeah. We'll let it marinate. No, we'll let it marinate. That's
You
okay.
can tell it now because
No.
I still need Angel to put her video on, but I'm trying to. Angel, will you raise your Zoom hand? Angel's our next speaker. So I was going to say we have like a minute to kill here.
Okay. Well, I'll make it quick, though. It's not an untold secret. It's kind of a proverb, that I've read or heard along the way. And it goes something like along the lines of there was a boy and a girl. They grew up in a village, and there was always this legend that outside of their hills, outside of their stone walls, there were giants. So nobody ever left the village. Nobody ever left the town because there were giants out there. Well, one day the boy and the girl, they grew up. They decided to leave the walls. They left the village. They traveled all day, and they end up somewhere else, looking down upon where they came from, and they realized that the town was resting on top of a giant. So that's my untold secret. And if you have questions about that, I'm happy to discuss. But it's kind of something that stuck with me through time.
Love that. Oh my
Get
God.
outside of the stone walls. Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
for sharing. Well, I want to introduce you to Angel.
Yeah.
So Angel is a travel hacking queen. Like on Instagram, she's like the best travel hacker. I mean, in general, she's just the best travel hacker who travels for free. So hopefully you guys can have some like paths cross. And I wanted to introduce you guys before you jumped off, David.
Yeah, of course. Free travel.
Why not?
Yeah. I think
Awesome.
you're muted.
David, thank you so much. Let me ask
Yeah.
you to unmute here.
Awesome.